Today, in episode one, I'm going to introduce you to my team. I'm going to introduce you to a couple of the strong moms that make the Family IT Guy possible. And we're going to talk about why we do what we do
Mhm.
and why we put the Family IT Guy together. And so I'll start and then we'll just kind of go around.
Mhm.
So we have, and by the way, I'm Ben, the Family IT Guy. This is Steph,
Hi.
not the Family IT Guy. I was about to say
No.
the Family IT gal, but just this is Steph. We'll introduce her properly in a
Yeah.
second. And we have Mary joining us as well. And so, um, in fact, yeah, you know what? Let's do brief intros and then talk about why we're doing this as individuals.
Mhm.
So, okay, so Steph, why don't you introduce yourself? What do you do? What's your role with the Family IT Guy brand?
Hi, I'm Steph, and I am the Family IT Guy social media manager and strategist. So I'm here to help Ben make sure that he's reaching the most people and helping the most families. And it's been a wild ride so far. And, we've known each other for many, 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 many years. And it's so nice to finally be able to work together.
Oh,
Yeah.
excellent. Thank you.
Mhm.
With this, Steph, I don't know how to use social media. Steph knows how to use social
Yeah.
media. Steph makes all the social media things happen
Hmm.
for Family IT Guy. She tells me to record my videos in a certain way
Hmm.
so that she can put them up and show them to you.
Yes. And yeah, Ben had never been on TikTok before. So,
Right.
we had to really showcase, you know, what we could do.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that he trusts me in the process.
Yes, I sure do. And then Mary, would you like to introduce yourself? What do you
Yeah,
do for Family IT
I'm
Guy?
Mary and I work on PR and marketing stuff. So also a lot of branding stuff. So my job is kind of to figure out what it is that we want to say, figure out how we want to define ourselves, and help us to say that in a way that's really concise and digestible.
Excellent. I love it. I'm so stoked. I
Mhm.
think I went to a security training thing, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, with all these like ex-CIA special forces guys in Utah. And one of the things that stuck out to me for this from this weekend of training I did was we were talking about some of the parents in the room were talking about situational awareness and like general security and like what should we teach our kids to do
Mhm.
if they're in trouble and if we're not there,
Mhm.
like if their parents
Mm,
aren't around.
yeah.
And this one mom in the group said that she tells her kids to look for a strong mom because kids know what
Mhm.
that means.
Yep.
Hmm.
And so I love the fact that you guys are both, you gals are both strong moms
Mhm.
and that you're part of this Family IT Guy team and that you're part of the mission to help kids stay as safe as possible while using the internet. So
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
So
It's very important to us.
along those lines, let's talk about why we're doing this. So I'll start and then we'll Steph and
Mhm.
then Mary.
Yeah.
Okay. So I am doing this because I've been in the tech world for 30 years. I've been at the highest levels of strategy and operations. I've worked with the NSA. I was the chief technologist for a $10 billion IT company for a while. I've done a bunch of startups. I've gotten a very close look at how the tech world functions and why it functions and who makes it function. What are the technical structures, the business structures, and the people structures that are behind all the things that we do and use every day? So I have this very deep view and very deep expertise from 30 years of doing this stuff. And then I became a dad. And then I made a bunch of very obvious mistakes in hindsight. I gave my kid an iPad.
Mhm.
I gave my kid YouTube.
Yeah.
I gave my kid addictive substances. Now, luckily, and I'm very grateful for this, the experiment was quick. It was quickly obvious to me that those were bad choices. And after watching him demonstrate addictive behaviors, we undid those choices. So first we took away YouTube and we switched to YouTube Kids, found out that YouTube Kids was poisonous and, you know, not good for kids. took away YouTube Kids.
Mhm.
He was still left with the iPad with some games and stuff. That was super addictive by itself. Took away the whole iPad.
Mhm.
So now he has an Apple Watch. And then I go start talking to some of my consulting clients and some of the people that I work with that are on technology stuff.
Mhm.
And one of the moms that I was working with asked me, like, "Hey, by the way, do you know how to keep my kids safe on the internet? Like, what I should be thinking about?" And that kicked off this whole thought process of like, well, I've been thinking about it for myself, and if I'm struggling with it and I'm an expert in the field, what must it be like for everybody else?
Yeah.
Started to look around, talked to Steph and to Mary and
Mhm.
to some others, and found out that this is a really big problem that needs a
Mhm.
lot of help, and
Very
that the more
complex.
people in this game, the
Yeah.
better. And
Yeah.
so for the past, it's been since the beginning of 2024 where I've really been putting a lot
Mhm.
of energy into this. So about a year and a half.
Mhm.
It's currently, we're filming this in June of 25. So that's why I'm in it, because I found out that obviously parenting is impossibly difficult.
Yeah.
And then you combine that with now you have to be a tech expert to be a parent.
Hmm.
So I'm here to
Mhm.
help with that.
Yeah.
How about you, Steph? Is there anything that you've encountered in like the world of kids' internet safety that's stuck out to you?
I think starting with YouTube, that is a big one. I think we all, my kiddo was young during the pandemic, and I think as a family, we really embraced YouTube you know, as a tool to, kind of get things done around the house. But then we quickly realized that just her attitude, everything changes. There's so much on YouTube that that shouldn't be there. So that's kind of the start. But that being said, I've been in social media for 13 years. I would almost say that I'm a walking, talking, kind of case study for social media because I am totally addicted. And it's kind of that's what my job is. So I want to figure out a way to make sure that my child knows, the safety of it, and also maybe to learn something, maybe learn a healthier way to use social media, especially.
Yeah.
And obviously tech too, but my main focus is social.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're an unusually informed parent.
Yes, 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 yes. And I think that a lot of even strategies that I bring to you that we talk about are things that we live with every day. So, I'll say, I can't stop picking up my phone, Ben, help me. Or, I got on to post to TikTok and I stayed on for an hour. So I physically know the tells, in my body how it feels, how it feels to be addicted to something as simple as TikTok or Instagram. And I know it's kind of a double-edged sword because we're posting this on TikTok and social media, but I think that the more informative and, kind of inspirational or just informative, I should say, content that we have out there, at least that helps me when, I need, to check in with myself or figure out. And of course, just in the past 5 months, I would just say that it's so lovely to see the impact that Ben has had on so many families just from the comments and the messages that he receives. So it's been so rewarding and lovely to be on this team.
Heck yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, this is I like the phrase meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
And I think that us being on social media is doing just that.
Hmm.
Like I want to be realistic about the fact that like for most people on the planet, there's no such thing as like, all right, everybody go cold turkey and get rid of the thing that you use the most.
Yeah.
So let's meet people where they're at and deal with reality.
Yeah.
So yeah, lovely. Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Yeah, what about you, Mary? I know you have a quite a background in this. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. So I worked in Silicon Valley for 15 years on the PR side, and I've worked with all different types of companies within the tech industry, from really large companies to mid-sized to small to like angel funded early in my career. And my job really was to understand the infrastructure and architecture of a company so well that I could explain the really technical aspects of the company, how it was built, and how it was different from competitors, and distill something like really technical language, because I worked mostly with CTOs and heads of engineering, and distill it into something that was really digestible for anybody to understand, like your grandmother. And so I did everything from like writing speeches, to working with press, that was a lot of it, to building messaging for the different types of software, as well as just like company branding and messaging. And over the course of my career, a big part of it was understanding AI systems. And a big part of that was understanding, before that was just understanding algorithms. And then I started to understand the diction component. I remember really early in my career working with one of the engineers who did the first four iterations of the iPhone, and he worked side by side with Steve Jobs. And he said to me something that really stuck with me, and I've never forgotten to this day. And I was like in my mid 20s, so long before I had kids. And he said, even Steve Jobs doesn't allow his kids to have these smart devices, these iPhones, or social media. And I was like, that's interesting. And that kind of just, I'm like a patterns recognition person. So that I just kind of clocked that and, never forgot that. I was like, I wonder why. And then as I got older, the more it kind of made sense as I was exposed to this, to different types of technology and understanding AI systems. And then I moved and I had kids and I moved to where I'm living now. So I was in Silicon Valley for 15 years and then moved. And when my kids were, they're still young in elementary school, but when my daughter was in first grade, other parents started to ask about when was the best time, the most appropriate time to get these smart devices, in particular, not just iPads, but like iPhones in
Yeah.
first grade. And as a new person to a new community, the last thing I wanted to do was like give somebody my opinion, really, because I was like making friends, and I think for some people it's like a divisive opinion. It's people don't really want to know your opinion on it.
Yeah.
And so I felt really compelled because so many parents were just like, I could just tell they were genuinely curious because they really didn't know, that because I knew what I knew, I had to start speaking up. And so the way that I kind of think about anything is like, I feel like when people like data and information is my way of understanding anything, it's not necessarily emotions first. It's like, what are the facts first? And that's kind of how I make decisions, most decisions in my life. And so I thought, maybe if I just give people the information, like clinical data about how this technology and social media affects our brains and our kids' brains, that they can kind of take that and make the best and most informed decisions. So like basically giving people like the lay of the land when it comes to technology, clinical data about how this affects all of us, let alone like our kids. And then they can make like the best, most informed decision for their family because every family is different, every kid's different, right? So I started doing this. I started with like my church community and my school. And the principal in my school was like, we're going to set aside a tech section for our school newsletter. And if you could just kind of like give data and information and articles about how this is affecting our kids' brains when it comes to smart devices like iPhones, iPads, smart watches, anything that's like connected, so connected devices in general, and social media and how it's affecting kids. So I started doing that. And then they asked me if I would start putting together panels and do public speaking about it. So then I started doing that. And then that kind of grew to like community wide, like reaching out to other people and other parents, and then having principals come to me and ask for my opinion on, when it comes to ed tech, like what's appropriate. But also there was a genuine curiosity about like why they were seeing kids affected in class. Like the attention span was just essentially nothing. And like they think that it has to do with iPads, but they're not quite sure. And because I understood the model, the tech model for like how they earn money based on attention as a currency, which we
Mhm.
will talk about later, I'm sure. But you
Mhm.
talk about a lot about Ben. I sort of knew that was what the ed tech model was based on. And so then I started speaking about that and how all of these things are kind of connected. And I became really passionate about it because the more I started digging into the data behind that, and in general, like again, because my love language is data, that when I would do these talks and have these panels with people in my community, I had to go and do all this research for like, what is the clinical data? How is it affecting everybody? And what are like the major data points that will make parents go, whoa, I didn't know any of this. Like, I didn't know that the average age before COVID for exposure to porn was 11 years old. And now afterwards, it's 7.5.
Mm.
So what are the conversations we need to be having? Because I quickly realized as somebody who's in tech that we can't monitor tech with tech. And what we really need to be doing is having conversations within the household
Mhm.
about why we need to change, like what are our values, which we talk about all the time, and like how we need to change the habits. Because us parents are like running circles around all these kids who have figured out how to get around like all of the boundaries that we set and all the technology that we think is like creating these really healthy boundaries that us parents are having to like go through and monitor. And then we have burnout from all the monitor. And so I
Mhm.
just felt like, look, I could continue doing this in my little city, or I can get together with other people and create a village of people that are going to have a much larger impact. And so, Ben, when you and I kind of met and you were like, this is what I want to do and this is my goal, and like you seem to be doing a lot of that. And how do you think people are receiving this information? What do you think is the most effective way of doing this? I was like, oh, thank goodness there's somebody else who's like has, a much more technical background, but a background in technology who has the same goal in mind. And I was like, let's do this. How can I help you? How can I build this? What do we need to do? I'm very
Mhm.
passionate about giving people the information to make the best, most informed decision for their family. But
Mhm.
if people don't know what they don't know, they're not truly making an informed decision. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to really be somebody who was driving that information vehicle to give people the information to just make those decisions.
I love that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's so cool that you and I met by simply finding out, via a common connection
Yeah.
whom we both know is like, hey, you guys should
Yeah.
meet.
Mhm.
Yes.
And then we get on the phone and like, oh, we're doing the same thing on different sides of the
Yes.
country.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, we should keep talking, and we keep talking, and then
Yes.
and now we're working together, and like
Mhm.
it's so cool. And then like just like with Steph too, we've
Mhm.
been friends forever. And then
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steph and I have done little things for work together in the past, and now we
Yeah.
finally get to properly work together for
Mhm.
this.
Yeah.
Like it's the most powerful mission. It's the most,
Yes.
I'm sure you guys would agree, like I've never been more passionate about anything.
No.
Like this is
No,
the
I
Yeah.
mission.
I mean, I
It.
had stopped working for a while and then like I said, it was just coincidence that I got roped into all of this. But what makes me so passionate was becoming a parent and
Yeah.
realizing that there's a massive, massive push for parents to just go, don't question that. Give your kid a device from a really early age. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
There's all
Mhm.
these security boundaries. And then to just know that like that's just not the truth. And then to find other parents like all of us just going like, I mean, we know that that's not the case. So like, how can we help other parents? Because if it's like you said, we have a technical backgrounds and like if it's hard for us because we're all just trying to navigate this and figure it out as we go
Mhm.
and just do the best we can, then like how can we share that with other people who have no technical background? If it's
Yeah.
hard for us, it's going to be even harder for them. And so if we
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
level the playing field and just go like, don't even worry about it. We're creating a space that's a one-stop spot for all parents to just be educated about what the tech landscape is, what our
Mhm.
kids against, how they're actually using all of these apps and devices that no one else is going to tell you, and like how it's affecting them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Why
mean,
doesn't that exist? Why is it
Mhm.
so hard for it to not to be in all these other places and for it to not necessarily work on so many different levels? And then parents are just so burnt out either by the information or lack of information and trying to
Mhm.
search on their own or like these apps that just don't fully work. It's
Mhm.
yeah.
like
Yeah,
it's
Yeah.
mind-boggling.
and we're all still trying to figure it out for ourselves as adults.
Mhm.
Like, what does all this stuff
Absolutely.
mean? How does it impact us as people with experience, and then
Mhm.
let alone the little people with
Yeah.
no experience,
Yeah.
the young ones?
Yes.
Mhm.
Something
Yes.
that really stands out from what you're saying, or that reminds me of something I saw recently, was the story of Jordan DeMay. It's this
Mm.
17-year-old boy in Michigan that
Yep.
committed
Mhm.
suicide
Mm-hmm.
from becoming a sextortion victim,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
where this organized criminal network contacted him and blackmailed him, tricked him into sending nude photos, and then blackmailed him. And from initial contact to suicide was a matter of hours.
Yep.
And one of the things that struck me in reading about his story was that his mom said that she had never heard of sextortion
Yes.
before.
Mhm.
And I'd have to imagine that Jordan probably hadn't heard of it either.
Yeah.
Generally
Mhm.
speaking, it's probably a fair assumption. Maybe he had, but
Mhm.
maybe not. And so if you haven't even heard of something, you
Yeah.
definitely can't be prepared to defend against it
Mm-mm.
and to know what it is that we're looking for. And
Mhm.
so then if I'm a parent that has no technical background and I'm already as I mean, being a parent is the most busy and
Yeah.
stressed and
Drowning.
overloaded,
Yeah.
yeah, drowning and like,
You're literally figuring out as you go.
Yeah.
you know. So now all of a sudden I need to study this new volume. I need to study an entire area of expertise just to figure out what is it that my kids are wading into.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of what we're trying to do here
Yeah.
with the family IT guy thing is raise
Mhm.
awareness.
Mhm.
And then for me, it's like, okay, well, where do you focus first? So you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Which of the things are at the top of the list? And that's what I've been trying to distill for the past year and a half.
Mhm.
And what I've distilled so far is two things: addictive algorithms, AKA things with bottomless feeds.
Mhm.
Anytime you use an app where you can keep scrolling and it never
Mhm.
stops, that's a sign to you that that's an algorithm.
Yeah.
Long story short, we'll get into this, and we have some videos already on the channel,
Mhm.
and we'll go into more detail later in probably future episodes too. But like, what you need to know about algorithms is that they're designed to take your attention. They are designed
Mhm.
to take your time. They're designed to consume you and study you so that you
Yes.
can facilitate the sale of advertising.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's how they make their
And
money. The more data they
Data.
pull in is how they
Mhm.
make
yeah,
their money. So they're
and so
observing every single thing you're doing, from how long you're on a video to
Mhm.
swiping to something to your password, how long it is, all of it.
all that stuff, or even if you go to post a photo of yourself and then you cancel it,
Mhm.
they take that as a signal of like, oh, she might be questioning the way she looks. Let's serve her some ads about
Yes.
makeup.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So addictive algorithms are the number one thing that I recommend that everybody focuses on.
Yeah.
Simply, if your child is exposed to an algorithm, I believe you therefore must expect
Mhm.
that they will become addicted to that chemically because that's what
Mhm.
these things are designed to do, and they're very
Right.
successful.
Yeah.
Right.
The software engineers that make these programs, that make these algorithms, work in concert with psychologists
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
maximize the addictive effects.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, exposing young people to algorithms is a thing that will result in addiction. Addiction results in anxiety and depression,
Mhm.
which
Mhm.
results in suicide
Yeah.
Mhm.
to such an extent.
Can or self-harm. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's at the very now. Granted, there's a funnel, so you have number of people exposed. The next layer of the funnel is number of people addicted, number of people that experience severe psychological effects,
Mhm.
Mhm.
number of people that actually take their own lives.
Yeah.
Mhm.
To the effect that since 2010, so from the time period of 2010 to 2020,
Mhm.
the World Health Organization's mortality database indicates a 400% increase in suicide rates
Mhm.
amongst people aged 10 to 25 or
Right.
10 to 24.
Mhm.
400% from 2010 to 2020. So if I'm a parent and I'm looking at my job as I need to know what I'm trying to teach my kids
Mhm.
and what I'm trying to protect them from,
Mhm.
where I'm helping them grow and where I'm helping them stay safe. So if we focus on the safety side, the same mortality database indicates that the number one cause of death for that age group is automotive accidents. Okay, so I need to be a safe driver. I need to have good tires, good
Mhm.
brakes, all this kind of stuff. The number two cause of death, because of that 400% increase, is suicide. How do I address the number two cause of death amongst young people?
Mhm.
Avoid algorithms.
But I think the issue is that number one, most parents don't know this information.
Yeah.
And number two, they feel like because we're all so busy as parents that the easiest way to deal with that would be oh, okay, just get an app that monitors these things. And
Mhm.
what we're finding as technical people, as parents, is that that actually isn't always the solution. So how
Yeah,
can we
that's
take a
right.
step back and have these conversations? Me, I look at it as a mom who has young kids
Mhm.
who aren't even on these social media sites, but how can I start those conversations for a really young age? So the way that I've kind of handled it is in particular when it comes to inappropriate images or being sexualized, because we're seeing this a lot, right, on YouTube and YouTube Kids and just all these other apps that I think parents assume are totally safe.
Mhm.
That they're just going on here to like post a video of themselves on TikTok, it's no big deal, da 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 da. Is that I need to have these conversations about inappropriate images with my kids from a very young age.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the ways that these kids are being groomed on these social media apps is through inappropriate images first
Mhm.
to sort of dismiss and get them to think it's not a very big deal when they
Yeah.
are faced with something that's much more serious.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's normal.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I've always talked to my kids from a very young age about, you know, inappropriate images and what to do if we see them, to not be scared of them, to know that you can come talk to me about it, and what to say to an adult when you see them, to like alert them
Yeah.
Yeah.
for many different
Yeah.
reasons. But yeah.
Mhm.
Man, I
But
think
again,
there's a
that's
lot to
like
that.
taking it into the home and going, it's nobody else's job to educate them about these things. It's my job as the parent because
Mhm.
I want to create the narrative. I want to get to them and have these conversations from a young age so that by the time that they're exposed to these things, whether it's at somebody else's house
Mhm.
or somehow they get a hold of it at my house or something, that they understand what it is they're up against.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
It,
think that's
Yeah.
critical. Yeah.
We talk a lot about, parents modeling behavior too.
Yeah.
So,
Thinking about that.
and as a group, we've talked about it so many times the past couple weeks, just taking the shame out of it and also meeting
yeah.
people where they are. Because I also think, again, from a technological standpoint, experts that have been in this, we've been studying it, we've been doing this, but even so, like, again, even I understand the social media effects on
Hmm.
my brain, and I still, you know, cross over sometimes, and then I feel shame. So it's one of those things where how do we, you know, as parents, how do we all come together and say, hey, we do live in a technological world. We all
Yeah.
have to address this.
Yeah.
We all have to figure out how to say no to algorithms or how to just log off
Yeah.
at a certain point, but and how to model it for children because we're not, I think as a value, as a family IT guy value is also not cold turkey all the time.
Yeah.
I think
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
I love that too, because I think a lot of people in the space might say, you know, it's all or nothing, but again, in a digital world, we can't really move like that. We have to be smart and we have to figure out how to
Yeah.
have those conversations with our kids and how,
Yeah.
and again, how we're not, if I smoke cigarettes, I can't tell my kids don't smoke cigarette.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
kind of one of those things. So we just have to figure out how to model this good behavior and what does that look
Yeah.
like?
I mean, I struggle with it every day.
Me too.
So like
Same.
I can immediately picture a couple days ago, I'm driving in the car, son's in the back seat, we're talking and stuff. My phone is up on the dash for navigation and for music.
Hmm.
And then so it lights up whenever there's like a thing, right? I have all my notifications turned off, but sometimes it still makes the screen light up,
Yeah.
even if I have the screen off. Or like we'll pull to a stoplight and I'm so busy with work that I feel like if I don't clear out whatever messages have built up in the
Hmm.
past 2 minutes,
Yeah.
that it's going to make my life harder in the next hour.
Hmm.
And
My
like
blood
fighting
starts,
that.
yeah, the heartbeat or just how do you feel in your body when
Yeah.
it's like, no, I just have to check it really quick.
Yeah.
Really quick.
And then what signal does
Yeah.
that show to him
Hmm.
as to like, so then when he's driving, what's he going to do, right?
Yeah.
He's going to be at the
Yes.
stoplight. He's going to check his phone.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's the best case scenario, right? Oh, thank you for at least doing it at a stop sign. But yeah,
Instead of
how
driving.
instead of, all of us being like, well, I'll just pick it up real quick. Or
Yeah. Yeah.
we talk about it a lot too, because even our music is connected to it and
Hmm.
our podcast that we're listening to, and we have to pick it up. So it's like,
Yeah.
how are we going to model it for them?
Yeah. So I fight it
Yeah.
every day.
I fight it every day.
So
Same.
Yeah.
it's
Or sometimes I
that's
find myself like just scrolling on one of the apps for like an hour. I'm like, what have I been doing with my life for an hour? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like we're all caught
I'm,
in it. It
yeah.
happens.
I could feel my physical changes or my, I think we were just reading that study, the new study on JAM,
Yes,
JAMA
the
came out
JAMA
with just
study.
the
Yeah.
addictive tendencies. And again, like as an adult, if I could feel the anger rise in me, if my kid comes in and asks me a question as I'm on my phone doing something, because again,
Mm-hmm.
I work in social, so I'm like, well, I have to check this comment. Um,
Right.
if I feel that anger that, or that snarky comment or something that I give back, you know,
Yep.
what are kids gonna go through if they're 9, 10, 11 addicted
Mm-hmm.
to their phones too? So, you know, it's just I think it's easy to kind of look at a lens because again, my kid is younger and not necessarily in that 9, 10,
Yeah.
11 age group, which I'm kind of nervous about in a way.
Yeah.
yeah.
Because sometimes I think, well, I don't have to have these bigger conversations just
Mm-hmm.
yet. But, again, as a society and as our kids are all together, that's another thing we could talk about too, is just,
Yeah.
we can prepare our kids as much as we can, but your kid's safety is only as much as the neighbor down the street who doesn't have
It's so true.
any
Yeah.
restrictions.
It's
Well,
so
And
true.
yeah,
and that's where I think a lot about the concept of skills versus rules
yes, yes,
and like helping
love that.
kids learn skills instead of learning rules. And so
Hmm.
skills are like, here's what the problem looks like. Watch me show it to you.
Yeah.
Like, let's experience it together. And then here's the way that I deal with it. And you see me deal with it every day. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't even have to
Yeah.
tell you. Um, like it occurred to me the other day that one of the things we haven't gotten into deeply with Family IT Guy yet that I want to more is AI.
We haven't even
We haven't even scratched
broached
the
it. I
surface. We
know.
haven't even like
Mm-mm.
I
touched it
know.
yet. And I have a lot of thoughts on it.
Yeah.
But one of my thoughts is that parents need to be using AI as much as possible
To understand.
so that they can understand it and experience the problems
Yeah.
and then show their kids the problems and
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
using it as a family. So I think
Right.
don't
Yeah.
let your kids use AI by themselves. First off, just to make that clear, current state, June 2025.
Yeah.
Risky thing to do, and we'll talk about why.
Yeah.
But how do you develop skills for something that they're already experiencing at school?
Hmm.
They're already experiencing at their
Yeah.
friend's house.
Mhm.
So all the Chromebooks at schools have AI turned on now.
Yeah. It wasn't that just in
Google just
Florida
recently
too?
turned
Yeah.
that on.
Gemini.
So
Mhm.
all the kids are being exposed
Yeah.
to keep the language kind like a BS machine.
Yeah. And
Can
we're
we
working with teachers and administrators that don't even have a
a
small
base
inkling of a
yes.
baseline knowledge of
Yes.
of an
Of what the
IT.
tech landscape
Yes.
is
Yeah.
in
And
general.
I
Yeah.
mean that in the not like how could they?
Well, of course, yeah.
How could
This
they?
is it's a
How
new thing.
we
Yeah.
No.
we can't even wrap our heads around it. And
Yeah.
this is our, we're experts in
But
this.
all this to say, sorry, Mary,
Mhm.
go
I
ahead.
was going to say, do you want to, for the listeners, just maybe talk about just really quickly the reference to that study we were talking about? I just pulled it up. Maybe
Oh yes.
just
the
I have it
JAMA
pulled
thing.
up, just the name of it
Yeah.
and just like what the
Yes.
objective was and what they found out.
Yes.
So I'm reading this directly from the JAMA study, but it's titled Addictive Screen Use Trajectories and Suicidal Behaviors, Suicidal Ideation, and Mental Health in US Youths. And so the objective was to basically answer the question, are addictive screen use trajectories associated with suicidal behaviors, suicidal ideation, and mental health outcomes in US youth? And what they found in this study is they basically used 4,285 adolescents, I believe starting from 11 on up, and
9
found
or
that
something.
there's a high increase in addictive use trajectories were associated with elevated risks of suicidal behavior or ideation compared to low addictive use.
Mhm.
So youths with high peaking or increasing social media use or high video gaming use had
Mhm.
more internalizing or externalizing symptoms, meaning there was a correlation between the more that you're using social media and video games and mobile phones. I'm guessing they're just talking about smartphones in
Yeah.
particular.
I think they were also mentioning screen time, and I think that they
Yep.
were trying to say that's where it confused me too, where it was like the more screen time doesn't predict, but the more social media use or the more
Video
uh,
games,
yeah,
yeah, and social media use in
yeah.
particular, it seems
So
like.
I still think screen time is a great marker for,
Yeah.
kind of making sure that it's a certain, I guess that's the one place we could start, right? But
Yeah. Like
maybe
what's
it's
the
like,
new one?
where are you, are you spending 5 hours on your
Yeah.
phone? Is it on social media, or is it being productive, or is it doing
Yeah.
this or doing that?
Yeah. Yep.
But that study is, I mean, pretty telling. And
And that
again,
just
it's
came
like
out June
giving,
18th,
I think as
brand new.
parents too, we really don't it's like giving kids access to um a casino. And I don't like to even use those references here or those metaphor. Is it a metaphor or
Something like that.
but it is. That's what if we give a kid someone whose brain is still developing, if we give them these things and then expect that they could just turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, you've reached your hour, turn it off, and then maybe not have those addictive tendencies of still thinking about it when you turn it off, needing to
Yep.
go back, leaving. Because again, these are symptoms that I have where I'm like, okay, I'm going to go do something, but then I'm still thinking about something on my phone, which is
Yeah.
just occupational hazard. But,
Yeah.
how could I'm just trying to, and I love talking about it too, because at least we could figure it out. Or, Ben is always like, don't, tech-free Sundays, haven't done that a single time
Mm-hmm.
yet. My husband and my
It's very
family
difficult.
are like, are you going to get off your phone? So I think in a few years too, we're going to just keep on seeing this as a general
Yeah.
conversation.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Our
speaking
generation
of,
was the ones that we've tested it on, right? This
yeah,
has all been a
yes,
test.
we're the
Yeah.
guinea pigs.
So yeah,
I was going to say, speaking of the brain, we know that the brain's not fully developed until what, 25, 26. And
25.
they found, yeah. And so we're expecting these kids to know how to like regulate themselves
Mm-hmm.
using this type of technology. And I think a lot of parents feel like they're giving the kid the world when they're giving them these devices, but really you're giving the world access to your kid.
Yeah,
And it's interesting
Yeah.
because
the
they
world
have
access to your
clinical
kid. Yeah.
studies that show that the parts of the brain that are most affected by these smart devices have to do with motor control and cognition
Yeah.
and motivation, as well as the areas of the brain where you're processing emotions and decision making and impulse control. And it's like we're giving these devices from such a young early age with unfettered access in some
Mm-hmm.
cases to the internet.
Yeah.
And then we're like, what's going on? Like, why are young girls becoming, self-harming
Mm-hmm.
at a larger rate or have suicidal ideation? And like, what is that? Like, we all know that middle school is this really formative time and a difficult time for anybody. I mean, dude, I
Jeez.
remember I was in middle school. I felt like those were like the hardest years.
Right?
Um, yeah, and then you add
Yeah.
social media on top of this
Yeah.
and the
Oh, it's awful.
algorithms and the
Yeah.
cyberbullying, and it's like there's just for me, I just feel like when it comes to smart devices, if there's no upside or it's not even net neutral, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the point? And we know
Yeah.
that if adults like with fully framed brains that like I feel addicted and I get lost in these algorithms when I'm fully aware that of what these are and that it
Mm-hmm.
happens to me, how am I going to expect my young child to be able to know when to just stop
Yeah.
and pull
Oh,
themselves
thanks,
out of
Steph.
it? It's,
Sorry, there's a gardener outside
oh
with
no, it's
with
fine.
noisy machines.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Like it's totally effective on adults. It's going to
Yeah.
be maximally effective on kids.
Yeah. I would
Yeah.
love your input too, because I think we have just sentiment on your social posts. We'll post something and there's either a total ban. That's why my kids don't have smartphones at
Mm,
all. Good on you.
yeah,
Cool. Cool, cool, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Total free range outside. Love that. And then the
yeah,
opposite where it's, you know, um, I grew up in the 90s. I'm fine. I played all these
yeah,
games. The kids have to
absolutely.
learn anyways.
Yes.
That's it. And I feel like you have a really good understanding of that too. But, you know, there's so much nuance to it. And we just, again, as a team, I just think that I love that we're so
Life is
what's the
nuanced,
answer to that?
life
Yeah.
is not black and white, it's gray
No.
Right.
oftentimes. And I
Right.
think
Yeah.
Yeah.
that in situations like this, you can find a middle ground. And
Yeah.
again, every family is different, every kid's different. And some
Yeah.
kids are not secretive. And if you tell them, hey, buddy, I'm giving you this smart device, this iPhone, which by the way is not made with security in mind and children and security in mind,
No.
that they're going to know to just put this down or to just, put it aside and charge it and what, just like leave it. It's,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's a middle ground approach. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be all or, one or the other. There
Yeah.
can be something in the middle. And again, I think in general, like mine and my husband's approach to parenting is like, they are who they are and we're here to just kind of like course correct them. But like a good way to do that is that there's a way, you can say till you're blue in the face that they should do something. But if your actions are doing the exact opposite, they watch everything that we do.
Yeah.
And so I even tell my kids like to hold me accountable. Like if you see me on my phone too much,
Yeah.
tell me and I'll get off my phone.
Yeah.
Because it does
True.
happen,
Yeah.
if I'm
Yeah.
looking at work email or whatever,
Mhm.
and I'm really into something and they're talking or they want to watch a movie or something, that's not the time to be giving my attention to my phone. It's my time for my kids and my family, and I should be putting it down. But it's
Yeah.
hard. It's like hard to balance that. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think my personal opinion in general is that one of the most powerful things you can do to set an example is to be vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
and to open up and say, like, hey kids, please tell me if I'm making the mistake that I'm trying
Yeah.
not to make. And like, oh yeah, and then admitting you're right. I did to make that mistake, or I did let the thing get me because that's what it's here to do.
Yeah.
And then them going through that with you, I think is so informative
Yeah.
and so valuable.
which
That's so
also back to
true.
the shame thing, you're
Mm-hmm.
taking away the shame in it because you're admitting as a parent
Yeah.
that you make mistakes too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're admitting that and you're saying,
Yeah.
"Ah, you're right. I made a mistake. You're totally right. I made a mistake and thank you for calling me out. And I need to correct that mistake. Thank you for saying that. That was a mistake on mommy's behalf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean,
that.
so
It
that's such a
shows you're
wonderful thing.
Skill
vulnerable. It
building
shows you
too.
make
Yeah.
mistakes. And then
Mm-hmm.
they don't feel shame when they make mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Which I love. One of my core things that I want to teach my kid
Mhm.
is it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Not only is it okay to make mistakes, mistakes are amazing
Mm-hmm.
because how do you learn if you don't make mistakes?
Yeah.
How do you
Oh,
course correct and
absolutely.
find out? So for me, life is a bunch of figuring out what not to do.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Totally.
One of the startup founders I worked with, I remember pretty early into my career, said the best piece of advice I ever got was to fail and to fail fast. And of course, we
Yes.
say this in the technology industry all the time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I remember that leaving a really, it was very impressionable on me. And I've sort of taken that advice and applied it in many different areas of my life. And also, as like a recovering perfectionist, I feel like it's like good for me to remind myself
Yeah.
that I should fail
Yeah.
and I should fail fast and learn from that. And I try to tell that to my kids a
Yeah.
lot.
I think as parents too, we're so susceptible to it and feeling, I think a lot of people, and maybe in the comments or if anyone watching this, I think that you see Ben as a cyber, you see his videos and you expect him to be an expert and perfect maybe. And just to know that we're all making mistakes.
Yeah.
Oh shit, oh shit, I spent 7 hours on my phone yesterday. Like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
uh-oh, or like, oh, we didn't go touch grass today.
Yeah.
So how can we just pick it up, leave it on that day and then the next day come back? Because again, searching for parenting tips online is also, you're already kind of in the right steps. You're already looking for how to be, how to be better, how to course correct yourself. So, how can we just make it so it's less shameful and more empowering?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the word.
Well, I think this episode one is a really great intro into like, okay, now we're going to continue to have our videos on social media where we talk about individual things.
Yep.
And then we'll
Mhm.
continue to have more podcast episodes where we talk to other people, we have team conversations, and we just try to just raise awareness about things that we think are worth raising awareness for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I if do you guys think, let me ask you if you think this is a good point to segue into like some of the future, because I have some stuff, we have some stuff that's coming up
Yeah.
that I think helps to address some of the issues that we've raised.
Yes, go for it.
Okay, you have something.
Yes, I was just going to say the one thing also with this podcast, I think, is for me, and especially with Ben, you know, we meet every week. We talk about his comments. We both tackle his comments and his messages together. And we, you know, if there's anything that you guys want to see or talk to him about, always leave a comment and just know that we're looking. We clock every single one of them, even if we can't write back to all of them. We'll text you. I'm like, Ben, someone's asking about Bluey. You know, can you check it out? And so, you know, I think this podcast would be a great place to do that. And maybe we, you know, weekly or monthly, however much we do it, we can, you know, just ask these questions and I'll ask Ben directly. Be like, he didn't answer this. So
Steph will be your proxy into having me actually, you know, and like tracking the themes of what's
just so you know, I do write back quite a lot.
Yeah.
Quite a lot. I don't know if that is the correct way to say that, but you know, and again, sometimes I'll delete it and say, no, wait, I need to go through Ben. But I think that we have a really good, just so you know, sometimes it's me.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I wouldn't be able to do this without without your ongoing like being on top of all that. Yeah, because I think just so as like so kind of our final segment of this episode one is we'll talk about a little bit about what's coming in the future. So so far my assessment of the big picture is that these things aren't going away. It's only going to get bigger and harder.
Yes.
And more difficult and more challenging and more technical and more like, whoa, all of a sudden waking up and finding like, wow, I didn't realize that actually I use AI for half of the things in my day.
Yeah.
And that I'm addicted to this and this and that. And so therefore, of course, my kids are too. So skills versus rules, we talked about that, right? So like it comes in to me, it's like education and community. Those, the more events I go to, the more people I meet, the more I study this stuff, the answers I think are education and community. And so how do you facilitate those two things? Where do you find, as a parent that's watching this, where do you find education and where do you find community? Right now, I think both of those things are muddy at best. And so what we're doing as part of Family IT Guy is trying to specifically address both. So first, education. So this is already what we're doing via our videos and via the Family IT Guy website, which has a ton of free stuff. Like it's a massive library of free stuff, familyitguy.com. Educational in nature. We're working on 2 books, one for parents, one for kids. How do we educate parents? How do we educate kids? And then I think it's very important to go and find your local police departments, parent-teacher associations, whatever groups you can find, locally search digital safety, kids internet safety, social media safety events. It's like there's a guy here in Idaho called Officer Gomez. He's amazing. He's out there all the time doing all kinds of events. I think he's actually known much beyond Idaho.
Yeah. He's awesome.
And so we're really lucky to have him in Idaho. But so find people like that and take your kids to those events. This is where your kids can hear other people than you highlight the fact that there are problems and this is what they look like and this is what you can do about it.
Yep.
So that nobody is caught saying like, wow, I just had something terrible happen and I never even heard of that thing being a thing.
Yeah.
And then one of the things I'm building right now is an event, like a website that will have all of these types of events in one place.
That's
globally.
So cool.
So you can go and find any kind of event that's related to this topic that's near you or that's available online. So I'll provide more updates as we get closer to releasing that. So that's on the education side. And then on the community side, it's super important to be able to contact other parents and other families that are on the same journey and that share the same values and the same principles. Like, what are we really after? The values and the principles are not technical. These are personal. Do we value safety? Do we value health? Do we value truth? You know, do we value human connection? Do we value nature? Do we value our own minds and the value of our time and our attention?
Yeah.
And so connecting with other people that are on the same journey is really important.
It,
And
it
so,
feels a lot less isolating, like you're not on an
yeah,
island
Yeah.
by yourself when
Mhm.
your kid's the only person in eighth grade who doesn't have a phone yet, you know?
Yeah.
Or when
yes,
you know that you have to say, which I've now started to do over the last couple of years, is like when my kids go to somebody else's house saying like, hey, just as long as you're okay with like no connected devices and no YouTube, just
Mhm.
so you
yeah,
know, you know?
yeah, which is
Asking if they're
amazing.
okay,
Mhm.
like that's, you know, a rule in your household and like, is it okay if they abide by that like while your kid's there?
Yeah.
Well, then you get to not only help out your kids and set them up for success, but then once in a while you'll stumble across somebody that goes like, "Oh yeah, I'm really into that actually," and like,
Yeah.
let's talk more
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so what we're doing as Family IT Guy to help facilitate the community thing is we're putting together a community discussion forum. So a website that you can go to and connect with other parents all around the world and connect with
Mhm.
me and connect with Steph and connect with Mary
Mhm.
so we can all help each other. Because
Yeah.
I don't think so. There's currently a couple of communities online. Some of them have hundreds of thousands of
Mhm.
parents in them. And I like what they're trying to do, but I don't think that it's enough. And so I'm going to build a thing,
Mhm.
and we're going to build a thing as a team that will help to facilitate this type of connection where you can get actual insight, actual advice, actual feedback that's based on experience that's both informed by parenting and by technical expertise.
Mhm.
Because it's the combination that I think is
Yeah.
lacking
Same.
in general. And so education and community, I think, are key. We're trying to help facilitate that. So we'll
Mhm.
have some announcements coming.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Mhm.
And if you have anybody that you think we should have on the podcast, please
Mhm.
let us know. And thank you very much for watching and listening.
Mhm.
And it's a wonderful opportunity. I'm very grateful that I get to do this, and I appreciate the amount of people that watch. And I'm really grateful to have Steph as part
Mhm.
of the team. I'm really grateful to have Mary as part of the team. And we have a lot of good stuff coming, and there's a positive future for our kids.
Mhm.
And we're going to make it happen together.
Thank you.
All right.
Awesome.
See
Thank you
you.
guys.
Bye.
All right. So,
Bye.
so you can stay on, Mary, if you want.
Okay,
Just
cool.
we'll pretend that we were all leaving then.
We should have closed with that question. If you could change one thing about
Oh,
kids and the
Oh, okay,
internet,
yeah.
what
yeah,
would
we can
you,
Do
actually.
what would
it.
it
I
be?
almost want to give you some like just random questions too. That way we could just clip it
Oh,
out
yeah.
and have
Oh,
some
do you want to do
perfect.
that?
even if it's
Clip, clip,
not
Yeah.
in
clip.
the yeah, even if it's
Okay.
These
they're
can
like,
just
oh, it
be
wasn't
like
it just
links.
randomly. Yeah.
Okay. And we can
Okay.
figure out how to like I'll clip this back in, or we'll do a
Yeah.
little like, oh, by the way,
Yeah.
Okay, so wait, what was the thing, Mary, that you just
So
said?
one of the questions I was going to
Oh, the
say
question.
that we could
Yes.
close out on or just have in general was if you could change one thing about kids and the internet, what would it be?
Okay.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I've thought
So,
about this a lot.
oh, amazing. Yeah, Mary's like, I had an answer. You didn't answer the question. Come on, man.
No.
So, okay, one of my favorite questions about anytime I'm doing consulting or I'm looking at like a big problem or trying to make something better is trying to narrow it down to like, what's the thing at the top of the list? If
Hmm.
you could change just one thing, if you were king for a day, queen for a day, and you could wave a magic wand and you could change one thing, but only one thing, what would that thing be? And so if we tie that into this topic of kids being safe on the internet, families being safe on the
Yeah.
internet,
Mhm.
if you could change just one thing, what would that thing be? And so whichever one of you would like to grab that first.
Okay, I'll go.
Mary. Okay,
Mary.
she's ready.
For me, because I feel like there's a lot of different answers, but I think for me, this is the most important one, is developing better thinking skills about online information from like a really young age. So having these conversations for a really young age about critically thinking about anything. So because we know that the internet exposes kids to a mix of reliable resources, misinformation, and marketing that's essentially disguised as content, and then also manipulative algorithms, which we've talked about to capture their attention. I think that teaching your kids to critically think as a skill set is incredibly important. And as part of that, one of the things that we should be doing, which you have already said, is actually looking at information like AI chatbots and social media posts and being able to show your kids like this actually isn't real. It looks real, but it's not real. And
Yeah.
getting used to deciphering what is real and what isn't, and what's meant to gather your attention, and why they're trying to gather your attention, and where that comes from. So, like, taking it a step further, taking a step back, researching, going straight to the source. Like, as a parent, like, if you don't have that skill set yet, being able to like hone in on that skill set as yourself, like being a critical thinker and teaching that skill set to your kids.
Man, I love that. Yeah. Please wave that magic wand as far as you can.
Yeah.
Critical thinking is like, I think a lot of people also haven't experienced critical thinking. It seems
No,
like, or maybe,
because I mean, think about the school system. Like, most of us are just regurgitating information for the sake of test scores and whatever else, and
yeah,
getting a certain grade point average or whatever in
Yeah.
order to have an end result, go to a good college, whatever your goal is, right? Like,
yeah,
we've been
Yeah.
conditioned to just sit, shut up, regurgitate the information, and not think about the why. But actually, it wasn't until I got to the work world that I really forced myself to do that, because I had to. I had to go like, what does this mean? What is artificial intelligence?
Yeah.
What different types of machines are involved? Like, what does it actually mean? What does it look like? Why did we do this? Who's developing it? How does it, what are algorithms like, in a way that's like tangible for people?
yeah,
And so, like,
Yeah.
as I was going through, in my career, the more that I started to do that, the more I was like rewarded for doing that. Because they didn't care about, there's no information for me to just necessarily like regurgitate. It was like, what can you bring to the table with your skill set? So it was a lot of like sitting down with engineers as a young PR person who'd been in, I know at that point I'd been in PR for like a couple of years. So like I had honed in on my skill set as like a PR person, which is a lot of like pitching reporters and not necessarily coming up with the strategy aspect of anything. But later in my career, it was sitting down with these engineers and going like, what does that mean? And asking the questions and like building that skill set of like critically thinking, well, how does that compare to our competitors, and why are we different? And then being able to leverage that and talk about it in a way that's like what you do as a PR person, is like finding what it is that we're doing differently and being able to express that, and so that our executives can have intelligent conversations with reporters and stuff in a way that they can understand, because they are so technical.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Starting with why.
Yeah.
I love that. My favorite question ever since I was a little kid that never got answered when I was young was why.
Why?
I want to know why for everything.
I'd be like,
Yeah.
And I'll be the guy
asking me why.
right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, it's enough already.
Yeah.
Like I've been the guy at executive conferences with hundreds of people in the room that will interrupt a conversation if I don't understand it. Be like,
Yeah.
I don't understand what you're saying. Can you please
Yeah.
explain that?
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
know I'm not the only one.
Mhm.
You know,
And then there's
like,
always somebody else that's like, oh, thank you for asking that.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I had so many people do that after these meetings. They'd come up to me outside the thing, vice president, senior vice president, executive vice president,
Yeah.
gigantic multi-billion dollar corporations. Thank you so much for doing that. I'm like, aren't you, wait, I'm the little guy. You're supposed to be doing that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just goes to show that, like, title means nothing. Like they're
True.
and that's the skills versus rules thing you're talking about, where like
Mhm.
schools
Yes.
tend to do rules versus skills.
Yeah.
Yes.
There are no rules.
Yeah.
And going back to
Rules.
parenting, like rewarding a curious brain. That's something that actually, now that we're talking, has always been very important to me. I want my kids to be curious. I want them to ask why.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Same. It can drive you crazy, but I do appreciate it at the same time.
Absolutely.
It's such an interesting perspective now being on the other side, especially because my kid, and I know we all say that our kid's the smartest kid. My kid's smart. Like his brain is powerful. And like, so I really enjoy when he gets to explore that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. So your thing you could change would be to like spread critical thinking and like help people experience and grow their critical thinking skills.
Yes.
Love that. Yes. Okay. I like that. What are you going to do, Steph?
I have no idea, but I have so many things that come to mind, but my first thing, I think I would go back a little bit and make especially Instagram and Facebook, because they were the first, they were the first to do this, but to make my feed go back to chronological.
Oh yeah, like if you could switch it
Oh,
back.
interesting.
I would love to still be able to have the choice, and I think that it
Yeah.
changed so rapidly. And
Mhm.
again, I've been doing this for 13 years. I was doing brand marketing on social before Instagram was even a thing,
Mhm.
and brands would join Instagram. Anyways, it was just wild, wild time, the Wild West. And I think it happened so quickly that even we're still catching up now. And my, older people that you talk to, they're like, well, I just can't figure out why I'm getting this
Yeah.
ad. Or I
Yeah.
just can't figure, and I'm sorry, it's probably, Mom, I promise this isn't about you. And and then again, young people who were, and even we're the guinea pigs. So it's happening in real time to us. It's happening.
Yeah.
And again, I think it was a choice that was taken away, and we could still Instagram let you go back to it. You can with some, you have to kind of really look for it, but
Mhm.
it really took away the joy, I think, from the true nature of social, which was
Yeah.
friends,
Mhm.
family, community first,
Yeah.
rather than advertising, because that's really what it is. And now, again, take it with a grain of salt, because I love a TikTok algorithm. I think it's incredible because I actually on that app, I choose not to follow people. I want to just I want the algorithm to just know exactly what I want to see. But
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
took, again, I want it to be a choice, and for people to really take critical thinking and go, I'm going to jump on TikTok, and I know that my For You page is just going to be a lot of manipulation, but I'm
Mhm.
going to go into it knowing this, and maybe, just with more understanding. Because again, I think
Mhm.
the way advertising works, which that's a whole podcast episode. Let's jot that down right now. Of I want Ben to explain to everyone the intricacies of how every data point that you do in your life on your phone can be monetized. And I really don't think people understand, because again, I don't understand fully. So if
Yeah.
someone who is literally marketing to people doing this, I don't think that you understand that even a microphone's in your
Um,
TV. Ben was one of the
yeah. Oh,
first people who
yes.
said,
Yes.
I'm going to come over and turn off all the microphones in your TVs. And we're like, what? So,
Yeah.
anyways, that I'm going all over the place, but yes, I think maybe just going back to the chronological, or just being more intentional with social media use.
Yeah. I
Yes.
like that.
Mhm.
That would be quite impactful. History would certainly fork in a different direction.
Yes.
Um,
What about you, Ben? If you could change one thing about kids and the internet, what would it be?
I would the first thing that comes to mind, I don't know if it's the right answer, but I'll just go with the first thing that comes to mind is having everybody talk about how what mistakes they've made
Hmm.
with their use of technology and what their daily patterns and habits are like,
Hmm.
Mhm.
so that we can generally destigmatize this entire topic
Yeah.
and to make it okay to recognize that there are 5 billion people on the world that are addicted to algorithms.
Hmm. They
And
made
that
it that way.
every single one of us,
Mhm.
if I
Purposeful.
could wave the magic wand, every single one of us could get on our social media things and share with the entire world and be as
Hmm.
vulnerable as possible,
Mhm.
and primarily share with their kids first. In fact, screw if sharing with everybody
Hmm.
else. Share with your kids first. Maybe that's the better answer of like, here, look at my screen time stats on my screen.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a video on that soon. I turned off my
Yeah.
screen time stats so I
Yeah.
could see my own.
I can't tell you mine.
So and see what I mean. But
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like
Yeah.
there are topics in our society in 2025, depending
Yeah.
on what part of the world you live in, where
Mhm.
certain things are more shameful than others.
Yeah.
And I think that the one of the things everybody I talk to on this topic when I'm on other people's podcasts or I'm just talking to people is it is okay to be addicted, to recognize that you're addicted, and to talk about the addiction.
Yeah.
And in fact, if we don't do that, then we're not maximizing the potential for our kids, because we have to expose them to these problems. And how do you
Mhm.
expose them to the problems if you don't show them what they are?
Yeah.
So that I think that's my
I love that.
thing.
Yeah. I think another thing that you said in one of your presentations was we have to teach our kids what it was like to live analog
Yeah.
or something along those
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah.
And that's powerful. I think we have to teach them how to use tech and we have to teach them how to be like, hey,
Yeah.
we're that generation would be like, it was all tested on us, but also, let
This
me
is what
show
we
you,
learned.
let me show you
Yeah.
what to do outside, or like, let me show you what it's like not even to have, to have a phone, or let me show you what it's like to use the computer only in the living room,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
Yeah.
or
Yep.
dial up. And they're all going to be like, oh, shut it. Or,
And never
oh,
going back to dial up.
yeah, never.
Dude,
But
it's
yeah, we got to teach them.
how are you guys on time?
I'm good.
I am good.
Okay.
Um, we have I have to leave around 3:30.
Okay.
So let me text him.
So yeah, because
Um,
we can do
I
the
probably have till like 5:15.
okay. Cool. So we've got a good 20 minutes of
Yeah.
like easy buffer.
Let me just get my babysitter, tell her not, because when she comes home, my dog's gonna freak out and bark. And then you'll be hearing that. Hold on.
I'm gonna learn a trick
I
from
have
Matt
another question for you.
is I'm gonna do a big movement in the camera right now so that future me knows that this is a part where we're cutting the
Cut.
yeah. He showed me he does that.
Smart.
He'll do stuff to the camera so that when
Mhm.
he's scrubbing through the footage, he's like, oh, that was the place where,
Genius.
sorry, I can't offer you any snacks, Mary.
Hey,
Yeah, what? I wish
I
I
want
had
to ask
those.
you about
It's good.
Messenger,
Oh
and
yeah.
and we could just talk through it
Yeah.
as of like you could just be like, I actually don't know, but we'll go off of each other, I think. I could be like, well, it's meta. And you
Yeah.
could be like, oh shit,
We've got,
already got to know for me.
I mean, that's pretty much all you need to know.
But I
Yeah.
think telling people why,
Yeah.
why that could go into another thing too about why you should care that your children's data is being mined. Like, and what does data mean? It's like their
Oh
whole
my, that's like a whole separate podcast
that
that we
is
should do.
like just
Like, why should
why
you
should
care?
you care?
Because we're
Why
so
should you?
desensitized to not
Yeah,
caring about our security,
yeah,
like non-existent security, our data being
yeah.
sold everywhere.
Yeah.
Why should
And
you?
Why does
Yeah,
that matter?
parents
pick
are
certain
desensitized, so
things.
their kids are desensitized.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Ugh.
All right, we'll do it.
We
We'll
have
do
to
an
discuss
episode.
that on a podcast.
I know
There's so
Okay.
much
that
to
we'll
say
have a
about
whole
that that
big.
just
I
so
know.
many people don't know that it's so interesting to me.
Like the why behind it all. And again, it's like talking
Yeah.
to older people and younger people. And I think even our generation does not really understand what
No.
it means to mine and sell your every single part of
Yes.
your life. And people say, I don't care, or just have it. Facebook can have it, which again, sure, they could have it. They
Yeah.
have all my information, but
But maybe if
what
we
does
talked
that
about what they're
really
doing
mean?
about it.
Yeah, they're making
And
money off of me and my data points. And it's not even just me spending the money, it's all of my friends. It's just,
yeah, but like,
it's
why
bigger.
does that matter to people? Like, what's
Yeah,
the pain point that
yeah,
we don't even know about, that we're not even conscientious about, that's
yeah,
Yeah.
affecting us and forcing us to make decisions that, had we known about the data points and how they drive us to have certain habits, that we could change that.
yeah,
Again, make a more informed decision based on what
yes,
we know about the data that's being um,
yeah.
mined on
And that's
us.
something that I've asked you so many times. And we could talk
Yeah.
about it too. Like you had a Google phone,
Yeah.
and then you're like, actually, don't like how
Yeah.
Google shares my information. I'm gonna go with Apple.
Mhm.
It's a necessary, or it's like,
Yeah. It's the
I,
lesser of two.
it's the lesser
Yeah.
of the, yes, I could have a
Two evils. Yeah.
Nokia phone, but those are the lesser of it. So in
Yeah.
this terms, maybe, Facebook Messenger Kids is an app that Facebook uses for children.
Hmm.
It's
Okay.
wild. Okay.
All right. So
So
we're gonna talk about some of the questions that we
mhm.
see popping up and just kind of do a couple of
Yeah,
quick
just
little
for my
summaries on like, okay, so what's the first one?
so we've had a couple questions come in recently about Facebook Messenger and what you think about it. And I think that we could also pair that a little bit with Meta Quest. I think we could just talk about Facebook as a whole, but
Yeah.
you know, what are your thoughts on Facebook Messenger for kids?
Yeah.
And it's an app that they market to children and parents to for kids who have it on their devices. Like, my family has one for their kids on their iPad, and that's a way that I could call them. And what's interesting,
Oh,
just a
okay.
little backstory, is like I think it just changed too because it used to be Facebook Messenger Kids. I had to sign up for it outside of my account as an adult and a
Mm.
kid so that the kid knew, But recently I think that they did away with that because now I could just go in and talk to them with my regular account, which presents many problems as an adult to be able to
Okay.
talk to children.
Yeah.
But
So is the video functionality on there sort
uh-huh.
of pushed to kids?
You could video chat in general. So basically, all of your friends' kids could be on there and you all talk to each other, marketed towards children. And then you could video chat and I think send like drawings and different pictures and facial recognition, you could kind of like Snapchat almost, like where you could make your face into something else. So we could talk
What are the
about the
parental
potential.
controls? Because that wouldn't that kind of be like what was that app that they did away with? It was like Russian roulette essentially with
Oh, right. Where you could
video.
just connect with random people. Is
Oh
that?
yeah, I don't know.
I
I
can't
don't know
remember
what
what
the
that's
parental
either.
now now it's just strange because I don't have to be because remember Messenger, I don't know if you remember, but you probably don't because you're
I
very
did
low.
use Messenger a long time ago.
You had to download a different app and log in,
Yeah.
and that was a barrier to entry for me. I
Mm.
was like, you know what? I love you kids, but I'm probably never gonna talk to you because I'm never gonna log on to a different app other than Facebook. And they did away with that. And I think now they're like, oh, no one's logging into Messenger like that, so we're gonna build it back into here.
Yeah.
So again, I could talk to them for my profile. I don't even know if they could see my Facebook profile. I hope they can't because now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know,
Right. What do
I've
they
had Facebook since
do? They have to have a
19
Facebook
from
profile?
20 like 14 or whatever,
Yeah.
2010.
Hmm.
Oh my
Right.
God, probably like 2007. I don't even anyways. Um so yeah,
So,
I
oh, wait,
think a
so
lot of
go ahead.
so the question is a ton of children use this app and what are your thoughts on it?
Okay. Do you know, like, so for your the young people that you know, the kids that you know that are on
Mhm.
there that you're connected with, so these are like your extended family
Yes.
members and stuff. Did their parents have to approve
Yes.
you connecting with them?
Not no, not necessarily, not through the app. No.
Okay.
They just had they set up their own kids account and then I did too, and then I was able to talk to them.
Okay. Okay, well so I haven't seen the new Messenger for Kids app.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll just talk about the principles at play.
Okay.
So there's the primary principle is that if you expose a child to an online chat system that allows them to connect with people that they don't know, and I'm not saying that's what Messenger is. I'm
Mhm.
just saying, generally speaking, if you expose a child to an online chat system with strangers, that will be a place where predators hunt for children, first off.
Yeah.
So that's a very important baseline to understand. That's why online chat is dangerous in a lot of the modern games.
Mhm.
That's why the online chat features in the social media apps like Snapchat and Instagram are very dangerous. These are the places where kids get abused and taken advantage of,
Yeah.
and where sextortion occurs.
Mhm.
So
It
the
was
prime
Omegle, by the way. Omegle got shut down, I
oh,
believe,
that was the controls
Mm.
because
for random
it's
people.
not Russian roulette. Sorry, it's like chat roulette.
Yeah,
But
Chat
kids,
chat
roulette.
it
roulette was
allows
another
you
one.
to
Oh my
connect
God.
to anybody randomly,
Definitely used
strangers, and so
chat
they,
roulette when I was way too young.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
hilarious and
yeah.
and
But
wild.
Oh my gosh.
BBC did an investigation that found sexually explicit videos
Oh yeah.
involving
Oh
minors as
yeah.
young as like 7 or 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
during COVID, and they were
You don't want to
exposed to
talk about
pornography and like inappropriate content because
no.
they found that so many groomers were on there.
Yeah,
Jeez.
and there's the primary
Yeah.
principle. If you expose a child to that, that is likely
Yeah.
that they'll come in contact with somebody or something that you wouldn't want them to.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so some of the online chat systems, so like Minecraft, for example, is this internet connected game. They have some parental controls that allow the parents to actually say, here's who you can actually connect with, and we can go and make sure that we know them in person first.
Got it.
And so if the Messenger for Kids thing has the ability for the parents to be totally clued into and potentially even in control of who's on that friends list,
Yeah.
that's a really good thing, relatively speaking. Okay, so that's the principle of just online chat systems. Now, if we take the principle, a separate principle of what incentives are at play
Mhm.
and what's the trade-off. So why are these things free? Right? That's a really good question to ask. Well, they're free because we participate collectively in an attention economy where we trade our attention for free services.
Mhm.
And what that trade does is it also makes it so that the services that are being provided have to make money somehow. And so they leverage what they learn about us in order to sell ads.
Mhm.
And in order to do that, like we were discussing earlier, they have to maximize the amount of time and attention that they get from you. And that has, from all the research that's been done so far and all the anecdotes we've all ever heard of,
Mhm.
that's very detrimental to the mental health of children.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we take if a company makes an online chat system where you could safely connect with people you actually know, and the parents can say, yes, they're allowed to connect with that person right there, and I've already verified that that username belongs to grandma.
Yeah.
That's great. If that chat system is facilitated by a company whose primary incentive is to take as much of your time and attention with no regard for your mental health,
Mhm.
then I'm not a big fan of that.
Mhm.
So like that goes against my personal values and my family values.
Yeah.
And so I think anytime I see a product with the word Meta or Facebook or Instagram or Quest, because that's owned by Meta,
Mhm.
it's all by the same company with the same intentions and the same goals. Those intentions and those incentives and those goals are the opposite of mine.
Yeah.
And so therefore, I don't use the systems that are made by companies, by that company or any other similar company.
Yeah.
And I try my best to help my kid avoid the usage of those things. And I try my best to help expose him to why we avoid those things.
Yeah.
So those are with my totally uninformed commentary on Facebook
Yeah.
Messenger for kids
Mhm.
is just the two principles of online chat and how to be safe in that world,
Mhm.
and whether or not you even can be safe in that world, and then also exposing your kids to incentives that are the opposite of ours as individuals and families.
Thank you.
Welcome. um, should we do any others?
Trying to think.
What other kind of themes do we have? While I eat some Cheetos.
Trying to think. I'm trying to think.
I have a question. What are some concerns that you have that we have as parents of with young kids in particular when it comes to technology?
As like for each of
Is
us?
it devices? Is it devices and apps? Is it going over to friends' houses who have exposure to that? And how do you handle that?
So my biggest concern is the inevitability of total exposure to all of the most dangerous things that currently exist in the digital world.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so big on the skills versus rules thing,
Mhm.
is
Mm-hmm.
because there is no such thing as your kid never being exposed to an algorithm.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as your kid never being exposed to online chat with strangers and predators.
Mhm.
There is no such thing as your kid having a device that isn't trying to addict them.
Mhm.
There's no such thing as your kid not being exposed to AI on an almost continuous basis.
Mm-hmm.
And so, therefore, my biggest concern is how do we facilitate the development of skills such that kids are ready and they're exposed in relevant and appropriate ways as they age,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
so that by the time they move out, there's no surprises.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, and the other one, there is no such thing as a world in which they're not going to be exposed to porn.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, every parent's thing is like, oh, when do we have the sex talk? Well,
Nowadays.
now it's also when do we have the algorithm talk and the online chat talk and the
Mm-hmm.
AI talk and the porn talk,
Nowadays.
which goes with the sex talk.
Yes.
Inappropriate images. Yeah,
Yeah.
But the
totally.
porn thing is like
Yeah.
way more, it's like a big portion, I think, of the more broad like sex talk now. And so
Oh,
those are,
absolutely.
yeah, for sure, right? Like, and so those are my concerns. Those are the things that I've thought the hardest about, where I'll
Mm-hmm.
leave an event like with Officer Gomez, and I'm like, what are we gonna do? Like collectively. Now, also
Yeah.
that being said, there's no such thing as we. What am I gonna do?
Mm-hmm.
What's my kid gonna do?
Mm-hmm.
What's my wife gonna do? What's my friend Steph gonna do?
Yeah.
What's my friend
Mm-hmm.
Mary gonna do? Because we're all
Mm-hmm.
doing this on our own.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have a lot of collective sort of speak in the social media world where there's a lot of like pointing outwards.
True.
Well, hey, other parents,
Mm-hmm.
you're doing this and this and that.
You do this. Mm-hmm.
You can
No.
only control what you can
Yeah.
control.
I'm here to focus inward.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. But that's
And
why it's
so
good that you know that checklist that you have on my familyitguide.com
mhm.
for how do you start these conversations?
Yeah.
How do you
Oh
have that
yeah.
conversation?
I know.
Yeah.
You can go to the
Those are great.
website and look at that list, and we purposely made that for this particular reason, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it's like, how do you start
Exactly.
these conversations? Many people
Yeah.
don't know how to start these
Exactly.
conversations.
And helping
We make
people
it
who are
easy for
in
you.
that stage of parenting, that's something that we talk about a lot too,
Yeah.
is what stage of parenting are you in? Because, you know, it seems like a lot of, it just depends on what resonates with people, but there's
Yeah.
sometimes me personally, I'm like, well, I don't have to worry about that yet.
Not yet.
But maybe that, that's obviously the wrong, maybe that's not wrong or right, but just,
I mean,
maybe it's the lead up or
yeah,
the just trying to figure out how to,
I
'cause
really
of course
didn't
I
think
have kids.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to have those conversations about inappropriate images
Ugh.
until my kids were like older. But
Yeah.
because of COVID, I started seeing things like YouTube Kids is a perfect example where I know
Yeah.
that the porn industry does ad bundles with them and sends them to porn sites. And there's
Yeah.
um, softcore porn on there where they make
Yeah.
them, Elsa and Spider-Man, they're cartoons. It looks totally normal. And
Yeah.
so when it goes to the next video automatically, it goes to one of these videos where they're doing inappropriate sexual acts and your kid has no idea what's going on, but then they become exposed to it. And it's like, I saw that during COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was wild to me because I was like, that was an indication for me that I needed to have those conversations really early about
Yeah.
inappropriate images, about body parts, and
Yeah.
all of that stuff. Like,
You too.
I
Yeah.
really didn't think, and I also, by the way, can we talk about the fact that we have to monitor these things like what our kids are watching?
Mm-hmm.
I never thought I would be someone who's like, I'm gonna have to watch this movie before my kid watches it, even though it says it's PG-13, PG or whatever, like
Mm-hmm.
I just
Yeah.
never thought I'd be that parent. And
Yeah.
now more and more, I'm seeing that there's like sexualized content that they're giving to kids and desensitizing them
Yeah.
at really young ages. And I just never thought I was gonna have to do that
Yeah.
because that's not my
Yeah. It
nature. Like I'm
sucks.
not a
Yeah.
helicoptery kind of a person.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
YouTube is just the perfect intro to parents to be like, this is the algorithm because it is. You put it on your TV and it seems like TV,
Yeah.
and again, of course, most people know that it is not. It is YouTube and it's, it's
Sure.
algorithmic.
Maybe. Yeah.
But
But
because there's a kid's name to
yeah,
it, you think that
because
it's
it's
appropriate content, and most
yeah.
parents don't know.
Yeah. It's
Actually,
not.
there's a
And
lot of inappropriate content on there.
yeah, and
Yeah.
just letting it pick for you, that takes
Yeah.
out so much thinking for the kid too.
Yeah.
And that's why it's why YouTube is just a wild place where you just, you're watching thing for 5 minutes, 3 minutes, changing to 15 minutes. It's really messing with kids and their attention span too. So
Mm-hmm.
Well, the one thing that I like is that YouTube has two very important options. They have one where you can turn off autoplay, so it
Yes.
doesn't automatically play the
Yes.
next thing. Very
Mhm.
like, so that's putting a big blocker in front of the algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is the approved content only mode, so that parents can literally
Yeah.
pre-approve individual videos
Yeah.
or entire channels,
Yeah.
and can even go into a channel and say, I want all 100 videos from the channel except for this one and this one and this one.
Yeah.
So that is really cool.
Yeah.
Those features are kind of buried, like a lot of people aren't coming across them, but they're
Yeah.
there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, back to like this big, like, what's my biggest concern thing.
Yeah.
And that's why I get back to like the answers, I think, are education and community.
Yeah.
In
Yes.
order
Taking control
to,
of
in
management.
order to
Mhm.
actually like bring your kids to these events, like the ones with Officer Gomez.
Yep.
We've had a lot of people comment in our videos and send us private messages
Yeah.
saying, I showed your Roblox video to my
Yeah.
7-year-old,
Hmm.
which I
Mm-hmm.
made that for adults, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm speaking in my mind, I'm speaking to adults in the
Yeah.
way that I'm talking, and I'm speaking
Yeah.
to parents.
Yeah.
I showed it to my 7-year-old and they totally got it.
Yeah.
And now they don't want to play Roblox anymore. Like, wow. So
Mm-hmm.
kids,
Yeah.
it's actually like, it makes me very optimistic as to like how capable kids
Yeah.
are. Like every day that goes by, I learn that even the youngest of kids, like through my extended family, there's this little 2-year-old girl
Mhm.
who is so freaking capable and is having like the sentences she puts together with like 6 to 8 to 10 words
Yeah.
sometimes. The kids are so capable.
Hmm.
We have to be careful, like, to how do we expose it to them and in what way are they ingesting it? It's
Mm-hmm.
obviously unique per kid.
Yeah.
But I love the general concept of like, they're more capable than we think they are sometimes, or speaking on my
Hmm.
experience anyways, than
Mm-hmm.
I think they are sometimes. And so bring them to these events, expose them to their problems,
Teach them the skills.
teach them the
Yeah.
skills.
And
Yeah.
I
also
think that will go
speaking,
to the naysayers of, sorry, of
no, go ahead.
well, if we don't expose them at all, they're going to be behind their peers.
Right.
But in fact, you could probably argue the complete opposite,
Oh, they'll
no,
be
no.
ahead of their peers.
Yeah.
Yeah, these
Teaching
devices
the,
are so intuitive that
yeah.
kids as young as 3 know within 10, 15 minutes how to do everything on there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
how to navigate and everything.
Yeah.
And actually, as even a potentially separate topic, something that's worth talking about is I frequently see commentary around, I have to expose my kids to tech so that they can learn and be ready for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of nuance to that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Generally speaking, I would be comfortable saying, and this is a 30-year tech expert saying, that is not true.
Especially not anymore. Like, not now, right?
Not true.
No.
So what does that mean? If you graduate from being a child and you become an adult and you get to go to college and you get to go to the working world, or you start a company, you will require certain skills in order to do that. And some of those skills will be in leveraging technical tools.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them will be basic, like word processing and spreadsheets.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them will be things we haven't heard of yet because of AI. Some of them will be using specialized programs. Like for engineers, we'll use CAD and drafting programs, and like architects will use programs like that of how do you draw 3D models.
Mm-hmm.
But the general concept of a fifth grader having a Chromebook and that's preparing them for the future, that is to their detriment.
Mm-hmm.
That is not preparing them for the future. It's not hard to learn how to type. It's not hard to learn how to use a word processor.
Mm-hmm.
It's not hard to learn how to use a spreadsheet. It's not hard to learn how to use the fundamental tools.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And those things can be picked up quickly and with purpose. I need to learn
Because they're
this
designed to be
tool
intuitive.
for this reason. Yeah. And so um just to my very like strong opinion is that the narrative that like kids need to be exposed to tech at young ages in order to prepare them for the future, that is false.
And also what we're discovering is that there's clinical data that has come out that has shown that the uptake in information, the way that we um, get information is not actually through screens for young kids. It's actually through reading and writing.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to remember information, to actually learn information.
Yeah.
And that's why there's become more of a pushback on all this ed tech stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and
And
thankfully,
ed tech will be that's a whole nother podcast episode.
there's a whole episode on ed tech.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I mean,
And that's what Jonathan Haidt kind of, has been is now talking about is
Yeah.
really this focus on ed tech and like where we should apply it and what's necessary and what's unnecessary.
Yeah.
yeah.
Kindergartners get Chromebooks. So that's, I think we'll go back to the beginning that you asked that stood out for me too. My kiddo, she gets Chromebooks every year.
It's so
Yeah.
deeply problematic.
Wild.
Yeah. With their own, with her own login and all these things. And
Yeah.
you're right though. Those skills are not, that's the baselines. Those you do not have to teach in a classroom,
And that's not the right time to learn those skills.
No. Yeah.
That's the time to learn social skills.
Yeah.
That's the time to
Play.
learn emotional skills.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's not the time to learn how to navigate algorithms and AIs
Yeah.
as
And
a
I-
young
Right.
child.
I can't
And the
imagine
foundations of reading,
how
writing, and math.
I
Yeah.
can't imagine how frustrating it is for teachers. Again, I don't want to speak for teachers or educators, but I can't imagine the difficulty of getting even kindergarteners and first graders, they're testing on their Chromebooks.
Yeah.
And I even take that with a grain of salt because I'm like, okay, well, she got this score, but it's on a computer. I don't know. Like, maybe she didn't know. I don't know.
There's a
I
lot
question these things, but
the Swedish government is running an important experiment right now
Mhm.
because they went backwards
Yep.
and they went back to paper.
Yep.
paper.
They've invested, I think in 2024, they invested like $70 million into
Mhm.
Yeah.
doing paper books for students and hiring more librarians
Yeah.
and going back from digital.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'd be surprised if that didn't have positive results.
Yeah.
And they've implemented the stay away for the day program where they don't have cell phones in schools. They're not allowed to
Amazing.
use them.
Amazing.
But they see
Yeah.
more attention and focus
Yeah.
increase.
I'd love to
for the
see how
better.
these kids, I'd love to hear from them too, which I'm sure they will, but
Yeah.
how
Okay.
they, we see all these videos of teenagers saying they wish they could go back
Had
in
them.
time and not
Yeah.
Yeah.
just delay.
Yeah.
There's plenty of time.
Or just have like a
to be on
dummy
your
phone, like
all
just
day.
yeah,
Yeah.
have a non smartphone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
tech, like I love saying that tech should be
Good.
a tool,
Yeah.
not a toy.
Childhood is
For
so
kids.
precious. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're going to give them tech, it should be very purposeful and
Mhm.
very restricted down to just doing the one or two things it needs
Right.
to do
Yeah.
and nothing else.
And
Right.
and also going back to your family and not knowing your kids so well to know that, hey, my little Ben, he's 7, but he cannot get enough tech. Do you know what I mean? And then that would be different, right? You would be like, okay, well, as a parent, I'm gonna maybe give him more
Yeah.
and my daughter less
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
she's not, she's susceptible to these. Or maybe
Yeah.
getting to know your kids well enough
Yeah.
to know, like, they, I'm gonna give Ben a computer because he is just gonna run
One's
with
the
it.
rule follower, one's a tricky kid that's always going to
Yes.
push the boundaries and it's like, I'm going to sneak that.
Yes.
I know the passcode.
I was always a
Yeah.
sneaky kid. So
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if my dad didn't do that for me.
yeah.
So when I was 9 and 10 years old, my favorite thing to do on the weekend was to go to the computer store and study the motherboards and the hard drives.
I was not doing that.
I wasn't
No.
either.
So,
No.
and he would drive me to the computer
Yeah.
store and just stand there for God, I mean, probably like over an hour. And I would
Yeah.
literally walk through the aisles and look in their glass cases. They had all the floppy drives and hard drives and motherboards and video cards. And I would study all of them.
Yeah.
And I would ask the salespeople to tell me all the specs.
Yeah.
And I would
That's
study
crazy.
the SKUs. I even remembered the SKUs. And then I would
Whoa.
go to the shelves where they had all the sound cards and the speakers and the monitors. And I
Yeah.
would
Wow.
go every single
This
weekend.
is my thing. Yeah.
And then I ended up working at that computer store because the manager was like, dude, who are you? And why?
Here.
Well,
Intern.
yeah, he's like, are you old enough to work?
Yeah.
And I wasn't at the time.
Yes.
And then eventually I was, and that was my first job.
Yeah.
And I was the worst
Wow.
salesperson that company ever had.
Yeah. You're all,
But
don't
I
get
was-
that.
Yeah, I was
Get
good at the
this.
tech stuff, but
Yeah.
not good at sales.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what a credit card was. I had to take my first payment and maybe somebody wrote a check and like I'd never seen a check before.
Yeah.
I had no idea what was going on. I was 14 years old behind the counter of
Yeah.
this computer store
Oh my God.
trying to service customers.
Here you go.
I was like, look, I can help you put your computer together,
Yeah.
but when it comes to paying me for it and all the rest, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
You know,
Talk to my manager.
That's funny.
Yeah. I think we get that general sentiment, again, talking about Roblox or video games, which you're saying, again, letting kids have imaginative play in worlds and world building, and video games are not inherently bad.
right.
But
Yeah, no, definitely
but
not.
we need to look at age. We need to look at, what they're doing and just kind of monitor and see where your kid's at,
Yeah.
and again,
Yeah.
just, looking for
Whether or not there's a chat functionality, whether or not there's
yeah,
an internet whether you can play it, without being on
Yeah.
the internet
Noticing
live
the signs of
and
your kid.
interacting with
Are they
people.
getting, less
Are they
talkative? Are
isolating?
they, yeah,
Yes.
are they doing this?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
these are the things that we talk about a lot. But again, yeah, I know on social too, things are so polarizing. So it's either all or nothing. And again, we're just trying to teach
Yeah, let's talk about the nuance.
parents the skills of, and understanding why these companies, who again, like Roblox, they have the capacity to be better.
Yeah.
They are choosing not to.
Yeah.
And as parents, we could say, hey, sorry, kid, until they figure out this online chat system,
Yeah.
playing Minecraft or whatever
Yeah.
that is. But
Yeah.
anyways,
I
yeah.
think
Yeah.
so.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Well, should we?
I'm trying to think of anything else. Nope.
Might be
I
a
think
good
that's
time.
it.
That's it for now.